As you know, I've been thinking a lot throughout this time of the good things that have come from our present situation, the good things that have come from our dealing with this pandemic. And one of the goods that I've realized recently is that it gives us common ground with even non-believers. And it gives us common ground in the area of life. Because in all of this, there is at least an implicit, if not an explicit, recognition that life is a good thing. Right? We're doing everything we can to try to save people's lives. And so even those who don't believe are showing this recognition that life is something good and that life should be respected. And so we should, rather than pointing out all of our differences, we should latch on to this common interest, to this common belief that life is good. And we should do this in order to promote the dignity and the value of human life. And the church as a whole certainly has to do this, right? But each one of us as individuals needs to be more committed to this. And the church certainly has done this. The church has done this for as long as it has existed. And 52 years ago yesterday, Pope Paul VI reaffirmed the church's teaching on the dignity of human life. And he did this by writing an encyclical called Humanae Vitae, of human life. And so what he was saying, and what I am saying, is that our disregard for human life in so many different ways that we can see in our world is a symptom. That it's a symptom of a much deeper problem. And so what is that problem? Well, I think that Pope Paul VI gets at the root of the problem, because in his document he writes about the lack of concern for life from its very beginning. Right? A lack of concern in the transmission of human life. If we don't have a respect for life there, then we see that it pours out into society in many other ways. And at the very beginning of this document, in the opening lines, this is actually where the document gets its name, he writes this: "The most serious duty of transmitting human life, for which married persons are the free and responsible collaborators of God the Creator, has always been a source of great joys to them, even if sometimes accompanied by not a few difficulties and by distress." Right, so if we want to continue to see this respect for life that we've come to see through this pandemic, if we want to see that grow, then we have to be more committed as, again, a church and as individuals to the respect for the transmission of human life. Now, why did Pope Paul VI write this document in general, and why did he write it when he wrote it? He wrote it in 1968. He became Pope in 1962, and in 1960, the FDA approved the first contraceptive pill. And so people in the church, wanting to be faithful, right, asked if this was some means that could be used validly to space out or refrain from having children. And so Pope Paul writes this in response to those questions. Right? And many people in the church thought that he would give an affirmative answer, that it was okay. In fact, many people that he consulted gave their opinion saying that they thought it was okay. But Pope Paul VI, following the church's teaching for 2,000 years, almost at that point, right, and following the tradition of the church, said that no, that contraceptive birth control pills were not good for people and therefore not approved by the church. And so the basis for his teaching is that what the church, again, has always proclaimed, that the marital act has two ends that can never be separated. That the two ends of the marital act are unitive. It's a coming together of man and woman in a most intimate way. And that another end is it has to be open to life or procreative. Right? That doesn't mean that every marital act has to end in pregnancy or else it's a sin. But it has to be open to life. Right? It has to be open to that possibility. And so Pope Paul VI goes on in this document and predicts consequences if widespread use of the pill would become prevalent. And so the four things that he predicted are these. He said that conjugal infidelity would grow. Right? So more people would commit adultery. He said that there would be a general lowering of morality. He said that men would lose respect for women. Right? That the more that possibility for life is removed from that marital act, the more men in particular come to see women as objects. Right? Something that we can use for our selfish desires rather than something that's good for the both of them. And then the fourth thing that he mentioned that would happen with widespread use of the contraceptive pill was that governments would impose sterility on its people. I don't think I have to argue for any of these, really, that they have happened. Right? The rate of adultery has certainly increased with the use of contraceptives, right? If there's no consequences, then I'm willing to take a chance. I might not get caught. Right? A general lowering of morality. If we look at our world pre-1960s and look at our world now, again, I don't think I have to argue very much that there is a general lowering of morality. Again, I think it's easy to see that men have, in a lot of ways, right? Men, I'm one of them, not accusing you. Right, we've lost respect for women. They've become, in a lot of ways, objects. And maybe the fourth one could be the hardest to see, but governments have imposed sterility on their people. Right? We see this in a very strict way in places like China, where you have 2 children. After that, you can't have any more. Right? We see this in some ways in our own country. Little Sisters of the Poor religious order have had to fight for their right not to provide contraceptives in their healthcare plans. Right? And so we're seeing all of these consequences playing out that Pope Paul VI predicted 52 years ago because of this widespread use of the contraceptive pill. So what do we do? Right? It's not good ever to just look at the world and see how bad it is and just wallow in it. Right, what do we do? How can we change the tide? Well, again, we have to be open, the church, but as individuals, you as couples, right, have to be open to life. Have to be open to the transmission of human life. This doesn't mean, right, before you freak out, maybe you already are, it doesn't mean that every couple has to have 12 kids. It's not what it means, right? Maybe you need to have 12 kids, I don't know. But it means being open to life, right? It means that without good reason, that couples should not try to not have children, right? The church has always seen children as a gift from God, as a blessing. And believe it or not, society and our world and our country has for a long time seen life as a gift, as a blessing. This is why, if you have children, you can get a cut on your taxes. That's the government's way of saying that this is something good and we want to encourage you to do it. Right? And so we're seeing this shift from children being a blessing and a gift to something that's just a burden that we sometimes have to put up with. Right? Children are a gift, and so we should be open to it. And so your response might be, but Father, that's going to be difficult. And my answer is, you get it. Yes, it's going to be difficult. It is going to be difficult to be open to life. It is going to be difficult to raise children. It is going to be difficult to take on everything that comes with that. And again, the church has proclaimed this from the beginning, that the Christian life is difficult. Jesus himself told us this. If you want to be my disciple, come after me, and it'll be rainbows and butterflies. It's not what he said. If you want to be my disciple, pick up your cross daily. Pick up your cross daily and follow after me. From the very outset, Jesus told us it would be difficult to follow him. And Pope Paul VI again affirms this in Humanae Vitae. He's not just some old guy sitting up in a tower disconnected from the world and reality. Right? Listen to what he writes. That this cannot be observed without sacrifices. Sometimes heroic sacrifices. Right? We see all these signs, heroes work here, and I'm not belittling the medical profession or anything like that, but we should put a sign in front of every parent's house. Heroes work here. It's hard, and it's going to require sacrifice. It's going to require heroic sacrifice from you as parents to be open to life and to raise your children well. But this teaching of the church is like the treasure buried in the field. This teaching of the church is like that pearl of great price, that when someone sees it, they want it because it's good, and they're willing to sell everything they have in order to buy the field, to get the treasure, in order to buy the pearl of great price. And once they have the field, right, the treasure probably doesn't just kind of rise to the surface, right? They have to go and dig for it. They have to toil with the ground. They have to sacrifice even more. And so they do it because those treasures, those little nuggets of goodness, are worth it. The same is true of all of the church's teachings, but I think in a particular way this teaching of the church on sexuality and the transmission of human life. It's difficult. It requires sacrifice. It is going to cost you. Right? Financially, certainly, raising kids is expensive. It's going to cost you in your comfort. It's going to cost you in what you thought your life might look like. Right? It is going to cost. But we do it because of what the gospel tells us, right? If we recognize the value, we sell all we have with great joy in order to get it. So I mentioned last week that over my retreat I started reading a book on Our Lady of Fatima, and I finished it this past week, so you're going to hear about it often. Because I needed to hear it, and so if I needed to hear it, probably you need to hear it too. So Our Lady told the children at Fatima that the last great battle that Satan would wage on the world, on the church, would be a battle against the family. And so I think in a lot of ways we can say that this introduction of the contraceptive pill maybe began that great battle on the family. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't go out and say, Father's predicting that the world's going to end soon. I don't know. Nobody who says anything knows, because even Jesus said he didn't know the hour or the day. Right? So I'm not saying that. But I think the battle has begun. Right? In many ways, I think it starts here. At that beginning respect of life. If we lose that, then we're losing the battle against Satan. The church won't lose that battle, but we might lose. Right? Our Lady told one of the young children, Jacinta, that more souls go to hell because of sins of impurity than any other sins. Right? And so if you, again, think, well, Father's crazy because he's talking about hell, well, I'm happy to be in that camp because Jesus, too, spoke of hell. In fact, he did it in the gospel we just read today. He says that at the end, All of the fish that are gathered will be separated, the good from the bad. And the bad fish, the wicked people, these are his words, not mine, will be thrown into fiery furnace where there will be wailing and grinding of teeth. Right? I have expressed over and over again my overwhelming joy and excitement to be here in Church Point. Over this year, I have come to absolutely love this place and to love you. And so I call you, I urge you, I beg you to listen to the church's teaching on this. Because I don't want you to be thrown out with the bad fish into, listen to this, into wailing and grinding of teeth. That doesn't just sound like a bad day to me. Right? And so I encourage you to pray. Specifically pray the rosary, to have strength to do what it is going to require to carry out this teaching. I encourage you to fast, right? Do penance. Because it's going to be difficult. We have to learn to deny ourselves those comforts. And then I ask you, I beg you, to respect life. And especially to respect the transmission of human life. And we do it so that one day we might experience that joy in heaven of finding that treasure buried in the field. We might experience the joy of finding that pearl of great price.